who writes that, quote, "The figure of the critic should not be a private matter, but as far as possible an objective strategic one. What we should know about a critic is what they stand for. They should tell us this," end quote. Outside of the lived experience of my personal life, there are a number of critics who I feel have inaugurated me into studies of power in such a way that have made me stand up. Karl Marx, Walter Benjamin, Audre Lorde, Frantz Fanon, Judith Butler, and Eve Sedgwick, Jonathan Flatley, Lauren Berlant, Fred Moten, Whitney Houston, Janet Jackson, Olive en Vogue, Missy Elliott, Shadia Mansour, Janelle Monáe, and José Muñoz. In each their own way, these critics are great, and I'm sort of responding a bit to Yasmin's question from yesterday about the relationship between a critic and their object or subject of study. As Benjamin has it, quote, "A great critic enables others to form their opinion on the basis of their critical analysis of their objects." And we've witnessed yesterday Professor Gutierrez has and is in the process of engaging in just such a practice openly, almost as if wooing the cosmos for more productive avenues into understanding the power of both an artist and their artworks, which is to say or ask, what is a critic in the absence of their objects or subjects of study? They lead our way. So it is no surprise to me that in Muñoz's latest book, he engages with and makes salient the work of, among others, Nao Bustamante, an artist I've wanted to visit Cranbrook Academy of Art for about 2 years now, and Bustamante accepted. Nao Bustamante is from the Central Valley of California and is now a proud Angeleno. Her precarious artworks encompass performance, video installation, filmmaking, sculpture, writing, and often includes community collaboration. She just opened a project space called Grave Gallery on the site of her burial plot in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Bustamante has presented in institutions and underground sites around the world. She has exhibited, among other locales, the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London, the New York Museum of Modern Art, the Performance Biennial, Deformes in Chile, the Kiasma Museum of Helsinki, and the International Sundance Film Festival, where she received the Chase Legacy Award in film. Bustamante received the Anonymous Was a Woman Fellowship and was named a New York Foundation for the Arts Fellow, a Lambent Fellow, and recently she was awarded the Mike Kelly Foundation Artist Project Grant and the California Community Foundation Fellowship for Visual Artists for her work looking at the history of pelvic examination. She has also received a creative and research grant from University of Southern California, where she holds a professorship. Her artist residencies include the American Studies Association, Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, ArtPace International, and she will be in residence at the Franconia Sculpture Park and the Headland Center for the Arts this summer. She is an alum of the San Francisco Art Institute notorious New Genres program, and in 2020 was awarded an honorary doctorate degree from her alma mater. Dr. Bustamante has influenced a generation of artists. The late scholar José Muñoz wrote, quote, "I want to call attention to the ways in which Bustamante's performance practice engages and reimagines what has been a history of violence, degradation, and compulsory performance. For a female artist of color to engage this field is not only historically loaded, it is also extremely vulnerable making. I would wager that that sensation of vulnerability does not end with the closing of a performance. Stepping off the stage, I'm convinced that that sense of vulnerability is something with which we learn, we hope, to live alongside of, in less harmful or perhaps more productive ways, to understand vulnerability as constitutive of our subjectivities. And often, after we step off that stage of our performances, we step directly into another vulnerability, namely that of our crit spaces. Perhaps what I'm after here is something about wooing the cosmos in service of a wisdom that might just hold us upright. I don't know. But I do know that when I read the following passage from Muñoz about Bustamante, I was struck. As a participant on the TV show Work of Art, The Next Great Artist, Muñoz captures a moment in Bustamante's art practice, a moment in front of a panel of judges, a moment in a crit space, and I'll quote, Like many shows of these types, editing practices attempted to identify contestants with certain taglines. Bustamante's was taken from a response to one of her previous judging sessions, where she explained that she was, quote, not responsible for the judge's experience of her work, end quote. I love it. Of course, not being responsible for their experience of their work set the stage for her eventual elimination. Bustamante came off as sullen, slightly resentful, and unwilling to please. Bustamante was literally mired in the ooze of a seemingly primal, festering wound that she refused to let go of. I'm almost done. Responsibility is something always already shared. I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced of it because of the shared relationship between an artist and their critic, the effect of which has invited me to, if I may, join Professor Gutierrez in corniness, to choose the ooze, as it is within being mired in the ooze from where I have become convinced shared life is best imagined in service of life otherwise. And with that, I'm humbled to introduce Professor Nao Bustamante. Thank you.
I sound amazing. Okay, let's watch a video. Oops. Hold, please. Turn that off. Just playing the pre-show music for one of my performances, Silver and Gold. But let's move on.
Pensaba que al abrazarte iba a sentir más limpio. Yo te quiero mucho, mami. ¿Qué le voy a hacer?
So this is a little short excerpt from a video called Neapolitan that's part of a video installation. And in the work, I'm going to just back up a little bit and talk about my process of making, which often takes many years, and even very simple works all have an idea that's more like a flash in my head of an image. In this case, I was watching this particular movie, Fresa y Chocolate, by the well-known Cuban filmmaker Gutierrez, And fresa y chocolate is referring to ice cream, strawberry and chocolate. And my work is called Neapolitan. And at the end of the movie, the two main characters hug, and one says, I love you too. And the music swells, and there's this sort of emotional outpouring. And when I was watching the movie, of course, I was like crying like a baby. And I should say also the movie is about sort of, the main character is gay, and the secondary characters acting as an agent of the state to spy on the gay man, and then they end up becoming friends. Anyway, the point being with the movie is that the idea I had was, I wonder if I could watch the end of a movie like this over and over as a kind of emotional vibrator to end my sensitivity to media and my sort of being manipulated by story. I think a lot of people, maybe some of you, have a movie that you enjoy watching that makes you cry or something, a song. I am particularly drawn to this kind of expression, this outpouring of emotion, this sort of welling up, this uncontrollable spilling over, this embarrassment of spilling over. And so I wanted to create a sort of video that was engaging a space that would somehow cure me of this kind of proclivity. And so I thought of the idea. It took me many years to even think about writing it down. And then when I finally did it, I couldn't think of a conceptual reason to do it with a different movie other than Fresa y Chocolate. So I ended up setting up the same movie to do the work. And I thought, well, I'm just going to do this until I stop crying. It took about 8 minutes of watching the end over and over, and I just got bored. So I stopped. Which is often the case, right? As artists, we might set up a set of rules, but then if we're bored with the idea, then we might abandon the work. So then I was trying to figure out how to install the video, which is always quite difficult. I find video installation quite difficult. And so I was sort of, this was a moment, this is, I guess, the early 2000s, when we still had box TVs. We were sort of in this transition period. So I had a box TV in my living room, and I felt like it took up too much space, too much mental space. So I, put a scarf on it, and then I put a little picture a day later or something, and then a little bit later I put a plant next to it, and I realized that I had been essentially recreating my grandmother's living room. And so this was a kind of moment of my own, following my own life in order to create like an artistic solution for something. So I kind of went into this kind of feminist art on steroids vibe, this sort of monster, crochet monster, in which the video can exist. And then the video, as you watch the video, you as a viewer, you became somewhat implicated by being on headphones that were also crocheted. So all the electronics were crocheted. Everything kind of linked back together. It was all sort of following the looping framework. And this is something that I kind of keep coming back to, which is this idea of a brain burr, or an idea that won't go away, and the idea that doesn't go away is the idea that I make, essentially. So I have these sort of ideas stacked up over years, and eventually they kind of bubble up to the surface, or there's an opportunity to make the work, or it is kind of pressing itself forward in my life in a way that I can't ignore it. God. I just got off of a red-eye flight to be here. It's very taxing. And I'm having this moment right now where I just realized I forgot to thank the committee who invited me. So I apologize. Thank you, Ted and Judy, and all of you for having me and wanting me to be here with you. It's I'm sorry, I'm just having this moment because it kind of just, oh, thank you. God, the tech team here is just so responsive. I just was having this moment of feeling kind of like all those thoughts crashing in your head. Like, oh my God, here I am as a student, and I forgot to thank my host, and I haven't slept. And, I'm talking about this work where I'm crying all the time. And sometimes the sound of clearing one's throat can connote a kind of sincerity. Also, leaving kind of long pauses between words can draw people in to the space that you're trying to create. It's kind of a space of vulnerability, a space of empathy, maybe even feeling a little sorry for me. You can feel sorry, it's okay. I mean, you can't really know how I feel right now, right? I mean, you can't know how I feel. You don't know me, you don't know my background, you don't know what I've been through. So, you can't know how I feel unless you let me hypnotize you. Are you ready? Let's dim the lights. So if everyone can just put your hands, uncross your arms and legs, get in the upright position, relaxed. You know how to do this. Get in a neutral position and go ahead and just begin to roll your neck around. Just finding those spots that feel tense and allowing yourself to stay there and breathe. Feeling yourself sitting in the chair, in your skin right now. Taking nice deep breaths and relaxing the top of your head, the forehead, the nose. Relaxing your eyes, your cheeks, your jaw. Relaxing your neck, your chest. Relaxing your shoulders back and down, and your arms, the forearms, the wrists, the hands. Relaxing your chest and your internal organs and your sex. Relaxing your large buttocks, muscles in your chair, and the thigh muscles and the knees, and the shins and the calves and the ankles. Relaxing your feet. Allowing your head to be loose on top of the spine, moving slightly forward and up, and just give it a little movement just to make sure it's not stuck. Just want to make sure your head is not stuck. Now what I'd like you to do is imagine a really big balloon, any color. And in that balloon, I want you to put all of your fears, all of your concerns, your stress about school, family, money, relationships, work, artwork. And in your mind's eye, I want you to walk outside of this building and let the balloon go and let it fly, fly, fly away until it gets smaller and smaller, teeny tiny, and it disappears. I'd like you to imagine another balloon, any color, big balloon, and in that balloon I want you to place all your desires, your hopes, your dreams, all of the things you want now and in the future. And I want you to walk outside with that balloon and let go of it and watch it get smaller and smaller until it disappears. All of your desires are out in the world being worked on. You could step off all of that stuff and just be here in the room with me. In your mind's eye, I want you to imagine me, how you just saw me in the room. You come to me, I smile, we have a brief hug. And you notice a little zipper just where my hairline meets my skull and my face. And I zip that all the way down like a hoodie. I zip off my skin and I step out of it. And you step into my skin. It fits perfectly over your body. You just pull it right up, just as you saw me a moment ago. You just shimmy yourself into it, putting your hands in my hands, putting your shoulders in my shoulders, zipping me all the way up until you are inside of me, and you are me. Now, my hopes are your hopes. My dreams are your dreams. On the count of 3, be me. 1, 2, 3, be me. Okay, you can open your eyes. That's actually from a work called Find Yourself Through Me, in which I hypnotize people to be me. And I take a digital portrait of people just as they are me, and I have been compositing this large digital portrait of all the different me's. So I'm in there, but there's a lot of other me's in there as well. And you know, the work is solipsistic. It is ego-driven in a lot of ways, but it's also a kind of way to call attention to something that isn't reflected, that I'm not reflected in my own environment with myself. And I think that sometimes I sometimes think that my talent is sort of just doing the most obvious thing, and that's oftentimes sort of where I head with the work. So what I'd like to ask of you all is, as we go through this process today together, if you can, you have a question or thought sort of as we move forward, if you could just sort of go ahead and ask it. Maybe we could have just a teeny light, not too much light on the audience. Just like a relaxing amount so I could sort of see them. Maybe a little less. They're kind of, yeah. No, that's too low. Okay. I don't know. Just, I just want you guys to be relaxed, but I want to also be able to see you. I don't want to be like in a black sort of space, you know? So when you have a thought or what's a good way to get somebody's attention when you have a question or a thought or you want to say something? Who said that? Yes, raise your hand. Great. What's another way? Come on, I know you don't have classes, but still. Excuse me, say something, right? Okay, so we have 2 really solid methods for getting my attention. I'll be checking. You could raise your hand. You could also just blurt out something. So we're going to keep going here. I can never get through my artist talk. It is a bitch. And I have Like, I probably am showing you maybe like, I don't know, 1/10 of the work. Anyway, brag, brag, brag. Humble brag. So this is not my work, but this is how I imagine my work. This is my mental process of my work. This is a crazy quilt. It's just an image I found offline. But the idea of that, my work is not a linear line that I kind of can, I circle back. I reuse materiality. Materiality for me is a concept. Materiality is a character. Materiality is a color. Materiality can be material. I literally just have old boxes of stuff that I go into from other works that I just drag something out and rework it, paint it, shorten it, whatever. So there is a way in which I can see, I could zoom back and I can see kind of a conversation in the work. Sometimes it takes a while for me to get there in terms of seeing or for the connections to play out, but we'll get to more of that. I want to go back to 1992, which is when I feel like I was, God, who was born in 92? I always love to do that. It just tickles me. Because it's like time traveling, you know. But yeah, so 92, I was in my 20s, and I left my, I grew up in a small town, San Joaquin, California, which is like a farming town. And I went to Fresno to go to Fresno State University with a major in agriculture economics and a minor in pre-law. So I don't know, some of you might be able to relate to this story. And you know, once again, I got bored and I started taking dance classes, and then I went to San Francisco to take a class. I ended up getting a job there, and oh, it's not a great sound. Okay. So I ended up getting work there and staying and sort of developing through performance, through dance, through poetry, different kind of personas. And a lot of these personas were sort of out of my relationship to being part of queer culture, but also performing in clubs. So I had this one character at the time named Rosa, who was a kind of persona who was like a woman, dressing like a man, dressing like a woman. Like I had these kind of elements that I had seen other drag queens use, like scarves or cut off gloves, that kind of thing. So Rosa had done a few different things. So it's 1992, it was this era that we sort of thought, you know, it was like the discovery of the Americas, right? The 500-year discovery of Americas. Remember that 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue? Does that sound familiar? Elementary school? Okay. So it was a kind of moment where especially artists of color were sort of encouraged to do work that was about the discovery of Americas. And so I had been invited to this performance salon by a really awesome poet named Lex Lonehood, and he's, oh, you should come over, we're gonna be, you know, people are just gonna be performing. And I said, great, I'll bring my strap-on burrito. And then we just laughed so hard, and I said, oh, I gotta do that. And so this was sort of a kind of, I'm telling you all this backstory because I think it's the way, sometimes the way art gets made, you know, that idea of sort of the happenstance of your life kind of intersecting with a moment or an opportunity, right? And so in this case, it was the 500-year anniversary of the discovery of the Americas, and I made this work was, you know, quite quick. It was like really just like a goof, but it ended up really having a lot of staying power. So I'm going to just show you an excerpt from that video. and I'm going to show it to you from a website called, the Hemispheric Institute Digital Video Library. And it's a really great resource, especially if you are interested in Latin American or Latinx art. It's the Hemispheric Institute of Performance and Politics. Is that am I getting that right? Huh? Yeah, sort of? Okay, yes. So Hemispheric Institute of Performance and Politics, it was out of NYU, and they have this digital video library there. So that's pretty cool. Oh, come back. Here we are. I can't quite see what I'm doing. Do you see the little sign to make it bigger? Maybe is it that? No, that's not it. That's speed, you're right. Maybe if I play it, it'll come up. Or is there like a play it from YouTube? Or, no, it's not on YouTube. I'm just saying. Here. Okay, I'm going to bring it back home so I can look at it. Oh, it's right there. You guys. Okay. But now it won't let me go back. Okay. Okay, you see it now? It's right here. But it's not letting me do anything now. Oh, technology is so fun. We'll just play it like this. I'll be brief.
I'd like to ask anyone who knows a white man who is hungry to come to the stage.
Let's back it up just a little bit.
I like to think of my performing not as audience participation, so much as audience salvation. I like anyone here who spills the guilt of the last 500 years to please report to the stage now. I'd like to ask any white men who would like to take the burden of the last 500 years of guilt to report to the stage now. I'd like to offer you a bite of my burrito to absolve you from the sins of the last 500 years of the repression of guilt. I'd like to ask now for any white men who would like to participate in this ritual of purification to come up to the stage now. I'd like to ask anyone with any inner white men to come to the stage now, please. I'd like to ask anyone who is hungry to come to the stage now. Oh, very good. I'd like to ask anyone who knows a white man who is hungry to come to the stage now. Please line up just behind me so that everyone can see you. Very good, David. Oh, look at this one. I think he's going to take it for a lot of people, don't you? Yeah. Okay, I only have 10 minutes, so anyone left who isn't up here, who wants to be absolved, or who wants to take away from themselves the 500 years of oppression and guilt that's been laden upon their little white bodies. So just come up here right now. Oh my, what a variety of assortment we have. Okay, let me just get the burrito prepared. All right. Would you like a chip as an appetizer while I'm preparing? if we could all just keep breathing and thinking about the indigenous peoples around the world and those from the land that we are here now. I'd just like to say this is a vegetarian burrito with no dairy. If you could all... I only have 10 minutes, give me a break. If you would all kneel in order to prepare yourselves for the cleansing that you are about to receive. You know, I have to say there's almost nothing that makes me happier than people kneeling, waiting to bite a burrito. Anyone who's offended by this, I really encourage you to just leave your body. Okay, before we begin this holy sacred sacrament, I would like you to state your name, any name you want, and make a statement before absolving yourself. And afterwards, I just want to encourage you to feel the healing rush that's going to surge through your body as you take the guilt for all those people who were too much of a coward to come up on stage for you. Because they're going to be channeling all their shit right into your body. You know that, don't you? It's okay, relax. And then what I would like you all to do in order to participate, because we all know it's very important to participate in order for a ritual to actually work, is when his teeth actually bite down the burrito, and for each participant, I'd like each of you to say amen. Not amen, but amen. And think of somebody who you believe needs to be resolved from 500 years of guilt and oppression, so we could just move on. Okay, your name and your statement, and your bite. Okay, can everyone see this? I mean, I don't want to, like, you know, cut anybody off from a good view. Ever.
My name is Marty.
Into the microphone.
My name is Marty, and there are a few things that could give me more pleasure than biting into your burrito.
Well said, Marty. Marty was very brave. He took most of the tortilla, as we know, is on the end of the burrito.
I'm Justin. I'm male. I'm white. I'm sorry.
I'm not sorry, Justin.
All right, that's enough of that.
I'm not sorry.
It's, any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was fun for me also, but also it's weird. Like I get kind of squeamish also seeing these works, these early works, you know, because I think also when you're young, you're in your 20s or whatever. I mean, some people just never lose that, but you know, I think there's a way in which you're sort of more bold or out there, and also just because I was engaged in this persona, so it's like having a persona or a character, something that can do things that you wouldn't do, right? So this kind of named persona, Rosa, she did things that I wouldn't necessarily do. there's another work about this time that, trying to get us back into the slideshow. I think I have to do something like drag this, or maybe click that. Oh, okay, here we go. So there's another work about that time, Rosa Does Joan, where I went on the Joan Rivers show and sort of infiltrated the show. I don't know how many of you know who Joan Rivers is? Curious. Oh, okay, a lot of you. That's great. Yeah, she was this really wonderful comedian that then had her own daytime talk show. And this was very early. This was before we had really language for, we didn't have, we didn't have language that, we didn't say trans, for instance. And I was part of a support group in San Francisco, primarily for what we called male or female to male people. FTMs is what the language we used at that time. And so, so we used this opportunity. I went on the show. The show was about exhibitionists, and I used this opportunity to tell a story of a fellow exhibitionist I'd met at an aquarium who was a multi-gendered and bisexual person. And this was sort of a story I sprung on Joan, so they didn't know I was going to talk about it. And so it's just a great response when I say that. I say, oh, I met this fellow multi-gendered and bisexual person at an aquarium, and she looks at me and she says, "An aquarium?" This is so great. I'll just show a wee bit of that video. We don't even have time for any of this, you guys. There's no time. But let's see. Where is she? Oh, I know. It's like the double desktop drama. Poor lady up there trying to manage it. Okay. I'm going to kind of just try to find a little bit of a snippet to show you guys so we don't go too far over. So this is the character Rosa, and yeah, this is also my first video art piece. It's about 7 minutes, and it was made about the same time, I think 92, 93.
If you are screening your code.
Let's see. These are some guys backstage that were on the show. Some backstage footage.
Well, actually, it was about the same age.
Same age.
It was about 12.
Pre-puberty to flaunt her body. Please welcome Rosa. Now, I asked Derek, he said about 12, he realized he enjoyed watching it. What age did you realize you liked having people look at your body?
Well, actually, it was about the same age.
Same age.
It was about 12.
Pre-puberty.
Maybe that's something the psychologist could talk about later.
Yeah. And did you walk around the house naked in front of relatives and friends and neighbors and postmen and...
Well, not the postmen.
Yeah.
But, yeah, relatives and friends. Well, what I would do was I would be in a room and I would undress and I would kind of prance around and just like dust and do things. And then when someone would come in, I would pretend that I didn't know they were there. So it was, it was a surprise.
What about what you were talking about? As I said, some of our staff said, do you purposely do this now? Do you get undressed in front of open windows? And what do you do to let people see your body?
Well, I do a variety of things. I'm what you might call a stunt exhibitionist.
Which means?
Which means that I prefer to actually dress for exhibitionism and go out and do particular stunts.
Didn't you get undressed though in a castle in Europe, totally?
I did. When I was traveling in Europe, one of the most interesting forms of exhibition I did was to go to castles and climb the tallest tower, which was actually quite dangerous, and take off all my clothes and get in sort of an Art Deco pose for the tourists. I once met a fellow exhibitionist, quite by mistake, a really wonderful multi-gendered ambisexual person at an aquarium.
An aquarium?
Yeah. And his name is Stafford, and we were watching the divers feed the large fish, and I was really attracted to him, and so I unzipped my dress and I started rubbing up against the aquarium. And she walked over to the aquariam and unzipped her pants and began doing the same thing.
This woman that you met?
Yes.
All right.
This man, this woman. Yes.
All right. Was it a man or a woman? When they unzipped their pants, what did we see? Was it a man or woman? Just tell me what the diver saw.
She said fellow.
She did have a penis.
All right.
So, yeah, she did have a penis. That was the best I could do at that moment. Any thoughts, questions, concerns?
Were the other participants on that show also doing a performance?
Well, yeah, I mean, hard to say. There was, everyone kind of was there for their own reasons. In the earlier backstage footage, I am showing a guy who's there who's been on several talk shows, kind of portraying different characterizations, trying to sort of become famous for being famous type of thing. And then there was a woman on it who was she had a cable network TV show in New York at the time called Voyeur Visions, which was very groundbreaking at the time because it was an interactive television show on cable where people could call and, give her, hey, I want you to touch your bra or whatever. She's like, oh, okay. So it was, it was like this kind of soft porn type of show. And then there was another woman who was putting herself through, I think, medical school by exotic dancing. And I did tell the producers of the show that I wasn't a full-time exhibitionist, but that I just dressed up and had this persona for exhibitionism. So, but all the stories are completely fabricated. It was all very fabricated in order to get to this one point, which was to utter those words multi-gendered, ambisexual, into the mainstream and kind of, in my own delusional way, kind of like seed the world with possibility. So I was in a kind of place where I thought it would be, just sort of cool to interject different language into the mainstream and see what, I didn't really think anything, I didn't have any idea that, it was going to like change anything very specifically. It was kind of just more like a radical intervention into language. That was sort of the idea behind it. Any other thoughts, questions? Yes, please.
What happened after?
After? What do you mean?
Well, after that all happened, like you came with this mission.
Yeah.
And were able to kind of, now are able to reflect on the consequences.
Now what?
Now you're able to reflect upon the consequences of that, like what happened to people, how did people respond?
Well, I think, so the question is what happened, how do people respond? In my career, I've had a lot of pushback from community members who have said, hey, you know, we need you to tell the truth. We need you to not lie, to not make up stories, to not fabricate things. We need you, you know, we need you to be a different person, essentially. And, you know, I tend to be more of sort of an irreverent clown type of person in terms of my art practice. I don't believe it's incumbent upon me to tell the truth or be sincere in any particular way. I'm more interested in sort of reflecting back and interjecting that what I experience around me. So, but in regards to, you know, I mean, so many things have happened, right? We, you know, I mean, my God, it's just, it's sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? Or, you know, or maybe more lately, 1,000,000 steps forward and, you know, 300,000 steps back. Like the way things move now are just so different and so quickly, and the disparity between different like cultures or laws, nation states becomes so much more apparent. I think at this point, I was very embedded and still mentally am quite embedded in my like radical San Francisco queer community. And so I didn't, you know, it was you know, we had this kind of like us against the world kind of feeling, I think at that point. And we also had our own world. So, you know, there's a way in which I think as artists, we don't, you know, sometimes we can, you know, change the world, but sometimes it's really just about building your own world alongside, you know, the powers that be or institutions or other spaces of oppression that you could continue to make it larger, and, you know, other people could jump to your world, you know, the more you're able to sort of support them and allow for them to be in a different way, in a different space. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. I am going to try to get back to this place again. Wow. I think maybe the mirroring thing didn't work out for me. Who's she? Okay. Great. So I wanted to just kind of quickly go through some other performance type works and visual art works in which I create sort of a body vulnerable space. This is America the Beautiful. This is Given Over to Want, which is sort of more about like hungry, holy kind of persona. These works tend to be more abstract, more visual, not putting, you know, verbal language to them, but more engaging a kind of visual language space. This is a work called Sans Gravity, which was really about the idea of thinking about peacefulness. I know it looks kind of violent, but I was really thinking about, like, if I could put my head inside of a head, you know, would I experience a kind of sense of peacefulness? And, you know, I did for a very short amount of time. It's an endurance work. It's a short endurance work, but in fact, an endurance work. This is from a work called Deathbed, in which I did a photographic series where I created a portrait of how I would fantasize being found dead. Later I ended up restaging it as a performance of a photograph, because I found like the act of trying to capture that space theatrically, really, you know, through a kind of breathing, through a kind of leaving the body or vacancy. It's all, you know, it's very theatrical. It's just pure visual theater in a way, trying to get at what we think, or what I think maybe that space might look like in a fantasy world. And then, oddly enough, it was, I made this work, Deathbed, to audition for a show called Work of Art, The Next Great Artist, which was a Bravo TV show. My really good episodes are 1 and 4, if anyone wants to go see it on YouTube. Anyway, the first challenge was to make portraits of each other, and so this was my my artist suitor, Miles, and he made a portrait of me dead without knowing about the other work, so I thought that was kind of cosmic and interesting. And here's the whole cast, and here's my tagline that Ted spoke of: I'm not responsible for your experience of my work. This is the work I got kicked off for. It was the shock episode, and I did a performance using the art bags of the sponsor of the show and stuff like that. And you know, it was just, I went on really just to like try things that I didn't know how to do, and I was very interested in production and television production. And so it was sort of it was a kind of a goof to go on in a way, but I did want to explore and express a kind of confusion of art making itself as a way of modeling art making for general public. And I got some really cool like fan mail, lots of fan mail. This is one of my favorites where she says, you know, your style is something I've never seen before. I'm about 15. I'm 15 years old, and when I grow up, I want to be an artist. And you know, stuff like that was very touching. And then I also got a lot of trolling and hate, especially around my body. You know, because people love to talk about other people's bodies. And so this was one of the more creative. Kind of trolling fan portraits or whatever. And what I really loved about it is like she was really complaining about me a lot, and you know, people would sort of send me special things like, oh, you got to see this one. Oh, okay, I'll go look at it. I tried to really just stay away from looking at stuff. But then this person was saying things like, oh, this one artist is, you know, so horrible, and her name is Nao Bustamante. She made me so angry. I stayed up all night making this collage of her. And then I was like, yes, I inspired somebody to make art. Woo! But this is kind of where we get into also that process bit, which is I had wanted to make a work that was like a talisman, like a protection for me. From like the slings of arrows of the mainstream, and I was imagining this kind of high-collared Kevlar dress, like protective material, long sleeves, long dress, and just more of a talisman, thinking about that. And at the same time, I got invited to do a show called From Chapaca to Zapata, revisiting the myth of the Mexican Revolution, and I started researching, and I found that there were these brigades of women fighters, and they were wearing dresses very much like the dress I had imagined making to protect myself. And so then I ended up sort of making the dress as a memorial to these soldaderas, or women fighter in the Mexican Revolution, out of a bullet-resistant Kevlar, this Edwardian style dress. And then I ended up testing it against the weapons from the era. And the apron bib, in fact, did stop a 9mm slug. So I did end up displaying it with slugs embedded in the apron, but you could see that there is a kind of frayed edge around the bib, which, you know, kind of happened when I shot at it. But that sort of led me down many years of research and into the archive of women who fought in the Mexican Revolution. And every time I'd find an image of them, and I went into the special collections at UC Riverside, and every time I would find an image of women on the trails, so to speak, it would be a miracle, because, you know, there just weren't so many images. But then on occasion I would get sort of rewarded with a photo like this, you know. This was sort of the advent of photography, and so it was, you know, one of the most well-documented wars with postcards and everything. I ended up finding a script by the Russian filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein that hadn't been finished, called Soldadera, and so I worked with his script and made more Kevlar dresses, and worked with sort of local artists and friends and used the backdrops of the archive to recreate the film Soldadera from the Sergei Eisenstein script. And that sort of led me to actually meeting the oldest person in the world who was the last survivor of the Mexican Revolution and was a soldadera. And it was an incredible experience. She was 126 at the time of our meeting. And I ended up making a sculpture for her that was sort of a spoof on VR. It was set inside of a stereographic photo player. So sort of a 3D video image of her and these wooden headphones, and then there was a bass in the stool that you could feel her clapping through. And I'm going to just play a few minutes or a minute of Leandra so that she could bless you, and then we'll call it a day.
Vaya patria, la blanca nueva, nunca la pusiste hasta puesta en la raza, nada la esta.
Thank you for paying attention to my very varied practice. Before we leave, I want to just turn you back into yourselves. So if you could just sort of slip into alpha state very quickly, just close your eyes and just kind of get into that zone. And you want to unzip my skin off of yourself like a big jumpsuit. Just unzip it all the way, let it fall to the ground. I step back into it and pull it up and zip myself back in. You are left clean and shiny and happy and refreshed and full of energy for your day. May all your dreams come true. 1, 2, 3, be you. Thanks, guys. Say yes, yes, and yes. All of the above. Huge amount of improvisation, typically with my... I do have some scripted work. The work that you see on the screen now was completely scripted, a VR episodic miniseries. But with persona type characterizations, I'll have a general script where I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this kind of thing. And if it's more of a script, if it's a persona like with like a performance persona, like with America the Beautiful, in that it's sort of more theatrical, I'll have maybe 15 cues for like an hour-long work, right? But with Rosa, I had a kind of goal in mind with the Indigerito work, where I had the goal was to get men on the stage. And I also do a lot of, getting the frog in hot water kind of technique, like slowly bringing people in. I personally hate audience participation. I would never want to do it myself. But I love doing it with people because it puts the audience on edge so much. Like you could cut the tension in the room because people are so afraid that they're going to have to go up on stage, right? Or they're somehow empathizing with the person that's up there. So with Rosa, I think I had, you know, some very simple goals, like get some men on stage, then put the burrito on after they're on stage, and, you know, get the audience to participate, right? And so I had a very loose script, but then everything was very improvised in between. And also, I think like a lot of people with personas, if you put on a certain thing, like a wig or an outfit or something, you know, that you kind of move into that characterization or task, like a ritual, then you'll find yourself moving into that space. And I think very early on with my performances, I was very interested in kind of dream space and like living dream space, so creating a space where I didn't really care about the audience so much. I was kind of more focused on inner space, but then I would create sort of a visual, something visual that people could grab onto. And I've always been interested in this, in liveness and the way that liveness can move you through a performance. So, you know, performing live would be very different than performing for a video or film for me, for instance. And so, so yeah, all of the above. I do have like my own secret private rituals that I do before a performance that I encourage you all to seek out your own private ritual space. It could be quite simple. It's just, you know, it's also it can feel a little superstitious to do it. I try not to get into that zone for myself of superstition, but it's kind of just more like setting intention, right? And sometimes it just has to do with breathing, or like one thing I do is, I didn't really do this one today. Actually, I did a different one today. I have like a couple, like maybe 3 different things that I do. Today I did, before I got to the podium, I did a kind of fire breathing, like just to get my energy up, like, which is just kind of like going, and sort of like you could just do push-ups too, right, or jumping jacks. It's a similar thing, just get the energy up. But then sometimes I'll do something where I like, you know, close my eyes and then I'll connect to the 4 corners of the room, and then I'll expand to fill the whole room. And that's like more of a performance thing if I want to get really big, if I want to suck you all into my story, if I want to bring you all, because it's about like taking everyone with you, right, on that journey. Get people with you, circulating in your space and your energy. And it's like something that is like pure fantasy, but then it can be felt, right? Any other questions? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Concept of what? Oh, goofs. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Could you expand on that a little bit? Because I think I might understand, but I'm not sure if I fully understand what you mean.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. That's really funny. So I'm referring to some of my works as goofs or a quickie, right? And the idea being that something, most of my work does happen through a kind of flash in the mind of sort of grabbing something. When I talk to my students, we talk about side mind a lot. And side mind is this thing that's just happening here. It could be unconscious mind or something, but it's things that are happening over here. And as artists, sometimes we can go like this. Yeah, did you feel that? So it's like that space of, you know, things are happening all around you, but sometimes it will kind of collapse in your mind, right? For like an image or an idea, or it's almost like solving a math equation or something. I don't know if, you know, people here are into math, but I remember when I was into math, I was really, you know, when you'd figure out an equation, it would be like, you know, like there's something that clicks. But I'm also very interested in, I know Adorno, boo, but there's this, you know, a concept that is very interesting to me that he espouses, which is that the mind is more like a field than a kind of, you know, we're kind of more stumbling around in mental space. So you can come upon things more quickly. You don't have to go on the whole, stay on the road, is what I'm saying. You could jump off the road and stumble into a great idea or something, right? And so I guess that's what I mean by goofs, is like, to me, really almost all my work start off as like that idea of like a quick kind of coming together of things or looking at the side mind. But sometimes I can act on them quite quickly because it happens right when the opportunity is available to me. And other times it just stays in my mind for many years before I even write something down. I've kind of gotten more in the habit of writing things down more, but I have this really kind of terrible process, which is I have so many notebooks, like at home on my desk. I have like a stack of little skinny notebooks for every project and every class and everything. And they're all like taped and color-coded, and I write all the time, but I never review. Because it's sort of the writing is the way in which I absorb, I guess, or the way I learn, or the way that I make sense of things, or the way I remember things. But really it's all just like whatever's on the top of my mind is the thing that I'm doing, is the thing I'm working towards. And so things kind of rotate like a merry-go-round or float up and float down, you know.